Well, it's 3:51, which means we're running just a few minutes late, which is entirely acceptable, yes? But it also means it's time for us to take our seats, and we'll begin our final session. Bob, take your seat. Exactly, leadership. Brenda Child, leadership, moving to the seats. Perfect, wonderful. My name is Phil Deloria. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan and honored to be a member of the Board of Trustees of the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, and to welcome you to this session today, Great Nations Keep Their Word, the final session in this symposium. The session speaks in part, or it speaks to part 4 of the exhibit, which hopefully you'll have a chance to see in a very short time, which follows historical chronology, some case study examples, some thematic analysis, including some things that might resonate with the panel that we just had, Bad Acts, Bad Paper. So that final section of the exhibit and then this final session in our panel seek to sum up, to pull together, to sort of congeal the insights of the exhibit and then, in fact, of the day that we've had today. So part of what we're about here in this session is reclaiming history, of course. Part of that, the easy part, is about making invisible stories visible. This is the task in Native American history and has been for so long. It's one of the fundamental roles of this great museum. But another part of dealing with history is, I think, a little bit harder. And it's harder because we live in a largely ahistorical time. As a historian, of course, this bothers me greatly. My students and the culture that shapes them tend to focus a lot on the new, on the now, on the future, as if time begins at this moment right now, or maybe yesterday, or perhaps last week, or at best last year. And that means that problems may have a history, but that history doesn't really matter as the people I work with, students largely, sit down to try to figure those things out. Solutions to problems are developed with very little reference to the past, which is why too often then, when I look at my students, I sometimes will hear these kinds of claims. They will be familiar to you, dismissive claims, things like this. Sure, treaties were broken, and yeah, we feel badly about it. In fact, we like to feel badly about it. But once they were broken, then they became kind of non-functional, right? So can we just move on, please, right? A very future-oriented approach to not thinking about the past, and that is the other problem with history, this claim that somehow the pure and simple passage of time, that is to say history, actually renders that thing we call history obsolete. Well, as this exhibit and this symposium demonstrate, nothing, of course, could be farther from the truth. The nation-to-nation relationship is, as I think we've heard today and we'll understand through the exhibit, an eternal, critical part of the fabric of the United States itself. So it's not only about history, it's also about our shared future. So I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have 4. Brian Kledusby has served on the Swinomish Indian Senate, the governing body of the Swinomish Indian tribal community, since 1985. He served as the chairman, the chairman of the Indian Senate since 1997, and he's the president of the National Congress of American Indians, president of the Association of Washington Tribes, and executive board member of the Washington Gaming Association. Following him will be Matthew Fletcher, professor of law at Michigan State University College of Law, director of the university's Indigenous Law and Policy Center. He's the Chief Justice of the Porch Band of Creek Indian Supreme Court and an appellate judge for various tribes. He'll be followed by the director, Kevin Gover, the director of this museum, former professor of law at the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at Arizona State University. From 1997 to 2001, Kevin Gover was the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs in the U.S. Department of the Interior. And finally, the person who's really, I think we all need to sort of always keep in mind when we think about the book, we read the book, when we think about the exhibit, when we think about these things, is our good friend Suzanne Schoen-Harjo, president of the Morning Star Institute, a national Indian rights organization founded in 1984. She's a writer, curator, policy advocate who has helped Native nations recover sacred places and more than 1 million acres of land. Since 1975, she's developed key federal Indian law, including the most important national policy advances in the modern era for the protection of Native American ancestors, arts, cultures, languages, and religious freedom. She's a founder of the Museum of the American Indian, served as the guest curator and editor of this project, as well as many other museum projects. She's, I think, something of a national treasure, and I just want to say how honored I am to be here with you. We'll go until about 5:15, at which point there are count them, three wonderful things waiting for you. The first is a book signing, the second is a preview of the exhibit, and the third is a delightful reception. And for those of you who know NMEI receptions know that they're always a treat. The food's always fantastic, the company's always great, so I always encourage you to be there. I'd like to simply close by reading something that Suzanne wrote as we think about not only sort of considering the negative, all the negative stuff that comes with treaties, but also the possibilities in treaties too. So Suzanne, your words here to close out my introduction, and then we'll begin the panel. The preservation and restoration of treaty rights can be the foundation of a harmonious and moral relationship between and among the Native nations and the United States, a relationship in which each party is committed not only to the redemption of its own interests, but also the well-being and progress of the other. The final chapter in this story has not been written, and it is hoped will never be. That is how it is when great nations keep their word. I'll turn it over to the panel.